Okay, pro wrestling fans, especially old school pro wrestling fans, or those that have a respect for the old school. This is my favorite Ricky Steamboat matches. Now, this is a rediscovered list. I think I wrote this list literally 6, 7, 8 years ago, and I just put it aside. Maybe less than that, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the notes, and God, I mean, it's just, I don't know what I was doing at the time. It looks like I wrote this list. Oh my God, I wrote this. Okay, Nature's Choice has gone out of business. That was a job that I had. I'm smiling because it was so long ago. It was a mom and pop company, and mom and pop have since been divorced. Nice people that hired me. I didn't work there very long. It was over 10 years ago, to be honest with you. So I must have been daydreaming at that job when I wrote this list. And I also drew an arm of somebody, some type of arm, an eye, a face down there. I'm folding the corner of the paper. And I guess I just held on to this list for over 10 years because it meant something to me. And Ricky Steamboat means something to me. We've lost a lot of great wrestlers this year. Paul Orndorff just passed away yesterday. Butch Reed, Don Kernodle. These are heroes, real men who wrestled real wrestling matches. And Ricky Steamboat's still with us, thank God. And I believe he's still active in training and giving advice to young wrestlers. I'm not sure if Ricky runs a school, but here's to Ricky Steamboat. And I guess the question would be, why not, why not pay Rick Steamboat respect while he's still with us? I mean, he's still a young man. I'm looking at this list, and oddly enough, I guess I just had a blank in my brain because I didn't put down. I guess I'll do the what do you call it? The honorable mentions first. Honorable mention, April 1989. Capitol Center, Landover, Maryland. You can find this match on the internet, your typical ways. But basically, I was there for the first 6-star match. The first, people call it the first Dave Meltzer 6-star match. He was in attendance as well. Ricky Steamboat defending the world title against Ric Flair, a false finish. Meltzer, if you can find his observation, put that match over big. I think they had a second match that same day. I believe it was a Saturday. So whatever that April date was, I was there. It didn't make my list for some reason, but I'll put that as an honorable mention. I'm getting a little bit of the Ox Baker eyebrow thing going here, folks. In honor of Ox. But what next? There was another honorable mention that I had. I'm trying to remember it. I mean, honorable mention, the WrestleMania 2 match against Hercules. Great match. And the stunning Steve Austin matches for the WCW TV title in really the fall of 1994. And really anything that Steamboat did in Japan, I'm not too familiar with. I'm really trying to get more into Japanese wrestling from the 80s and 90s. What's always prevented me from fully committing to that pursuit as a wrestling historian is the lack of English commentary. It's hard for me to watch pro wrestling on TV without commentary. I can go the venue, the arena, the live show and see wrestling, but I've always had that difficulty where I can't just sit there and watch the great Japanese matches without some commentary. So if anyone has solutions for me, let me know. I guess I could learn Japanese, okay? Sorry, it's 2021. I should just go learn Japanese in 2 days. Anyway, let's start with the list. Here's the list. I'm going to actually have an informal auction for this list. You can put your bid on this list, and I will either autograph it for you or send you a separate autographed Mike Messier photograph in the comments. So, number 10... Clash of the Champions, late 1991, I want to say September of 1991. Ricky Steamboat was a surprise guest, teaming up with Dustin Rhodes to beat Larry Zbyszko and Arn Anderson for the WCW World Tag Team titles. I always found this, I always loved the goddamn Clash of Champions, okay? Sure, the pay-per-views from WCW or the NWA in that kind of those transitional years, the pay-per-views were always great. But the Clash of Champions were really great too. They were kind of like a little bit more than a Saturday night's main event and a little bit less than a pay-per-view. But a lot of times they had blow-off matches like the Flair Funk Clash of the Champions 9. This was the era at this 1991 that Ric Flair was over in the WWF. So Steamboat coming in was like, man, he gets to be the grandfather wrestler or the uncle wrestler to these young bucks, you know. And here was Steamboat. This angle also solidified Barry Windham as a babyface because Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko had beaten him up, and they were kind of doing a little bit of an advanced storyline where they were showing Dustin Rhodes and Barry Windham as outside of the ring friends, riding partners, even though Windham was technically a heel and Rhodes was technically a babyface. At Halloween Havoc 91, they had this backstage segment where outside segment, I think Eric Bischoff was hosting, where Zbyszko and Arn attacked Dustin and Barry. And like I said, Barry was a heel, Dustin was a babyface, and they were trying to, it was almost like ahead of its time a little bit. Windham ended up with a broken arm and could not wrestle with Dustin against Zbyszko and Anderson, so Steamboat took the place and they won the belt. So that's my number 10. My number 9, oh my God, I have more omissions. I omitted, and I apologize, Steamboat's tag team matches with Jay Youngblood. I mean, you're talking about Final Conflict 83, which when I wrote this list, to my defense, I had not seen that match yet. I've seen it in the last 5 years. And Steamboat and Youngblood versus the Briscoes at Starrcade 83. So my apologies to Jay Youngblood. You know, I think his daughter's somewhere on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or something. So shout out to Jay Youngblood, great wrestler. Number 9 on my list, though, because I'm sticking with the list that I wrote here. With Eddie Gilbert, kind of the same thing, with Eddie Gilbert with a victory over Barry Windham and Ric Flair in 1989. This is what I put for number 9. This match can be easily found. Gilbert was in a feud with Windham and Flair. Now, Dusty had just left the NWA, which again, it was still being called the NWA, although it would be retroactively changed to WCW. So you had like a void of top baby faces, and Steamboat coming in after being gone from the NWA for 5 years and taking that spot to be Eddie Gilbert's partner, scoring the, well, I'll let you watch the match, but you can kind of figure it out, that Steamboat and Flair would go on to have a great series of matches. So once again, another Steamboat Barry Windham thing, and once again, another time when Steamboat's brought in as a surprise guest in a tag team match. So that's pretty exciting. Number 8 is a match. I really like this match. Starrcade 1984, Ricky Steamboat against Tully Blanchard. Now, for those of you that are watching AEW, maybe younger fans, and you're seeing this Tully Blanchard with the FTR, and you're wondering, well, how great is this Tully Blanchard? I would kindly refer you to the Starrcade 84 match where he and Steamboat essentially steal the show. Flair and Rhodes did not have a great main event, you know, by most standards. Tully and Steamboat, best match on the show. Number 7, I've got Clash of the Champions. Clash of the Champions 6 versus Ric Flair. Now, this is a very odd choice for me, and I'll tell you why. Clash 6 versus Ric Flair, because I've always said that that's my favorite wrestling match of all time. So I'm trying to figure out, why did I put that at number 7 here, pretty low on the list, and I think I know why. I think I was trying to make this a list that pertained to Steamboat's activity, like Steamboat's contributions to the match. And in this particular match, it wasn't that Steamboat carried Flair or Flair carried Steamboat. They were just so equally matched. And this was a match where both guys kind of came out pretty strong. I'll let you watch the match because I'm trying not to spoil it for the younger fans. The older fans know what happened, but if you haven't seen this match, Clash of the Champions 6, I believe it was April 2nd, 1989. It's got to be on Peacock. It's got to be on the network for the UK fans and the international subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel fans. That's what I went with for number 7. Surprisingly a little bit low, but I think it'll all work out when we get through this list. Number 6, first Bret the Hitman Hart, WWF video series. I believe these two gentlemen only wrestled twice. I think I've heard Steamboat and Bret say that. Once was at the Capitol Center, Landover, Maryland, and the other was, I believe, in the Boston Garden. And I can't remember right now which of the two is on the WWF video series. But once again, you can find this, I think, even on the Bret Hart 3-disc compilation from 7 or 8 or 9 years ago. It can be found. By the way, the WWF, to their credit, had a great 10 years at least, maybe 15, of really awesome DVDs, like from 2000 to 2015. And then with the network, it just killed it. So they did have a great 15 years of really great DVD making, and just fell by the wayside. So that's number 6, Steamboat versus Bret. Number 5, this was a personal choice. I was a small child. I went to the Capitol Center in 1985. Martial arts fucking match. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Don Magnificent Morocco. Interesting story. I go to the show with my dad, and we had a big weekend, me and my father. I think we went to 2 pro hockey games and the wrestling. I think the wrestling was a Sunday matinee. The hockey games were a Friday and a Saturday, and the big time stuff for a young kid to be enjoying the time with his dad, seeing these sporting events. We get to the fucking show. We're literally in the first match. It's like Scott McGee versus Les Thornton, or Scott McGee versus Paul Christie. And I was probably the only person of the 20,000 to know who these two guys were. Okay. We're watching this match, and suddenly there's a sound and a sound of a cup and a pour, and a feeling, a sensation of liquid on the back of my neck, throughout my shirt. Turn around, and a guy who looked like the fucking berserker, Nord the Barbarian, John Nord, this big scary fuck, had poured, not purposely, but accidentally dropped a beer on the back of me and my father and a few other people. So there was some outrage, but when everybody kind of looked at this fucking guy, the outrage turned to quiet, because he was scary as fuck. And who knows, it might have been the fucking berserker. It might have been John Nord at the Capitol Center. Maybe he was trying to get a contract, and who the fuck knows. But it's just a memory that always sticks with me, because of the rest of the fucking show. I had this fuckhead's beer all over my neck and back, and I did have a little bit of passive-aggressive revenge, because during the main event, or I think it was actually during this match, Steamboat and fucking Morocco in the martial arts match, I took great pleasure in sitting on the end of my seat, like allowing my chair to go up and then sitting on that, like sitting on the roof of the chair, if you know, because of those arena chairs. So I sat on that, knowing he would not confront me, even though I was a fucking little kid. I just wanted to fuck with him a little bit, because he spilled this goddamn beer on the back of me and my dad and everybody else. And there you fucking have it. It was an interesting moment. My dad and I had a little talk about it afterwards, and my dad said, yeah, when something like that happens, you can either get upset about it or you can try to keep your cool. Now, respect to my father, but I think, like like everybody else, we were probably afraid of this motherfucker, because like I said, he looked like the goddamn berserker, the berserker spilling beer on people. The next match of the Steamboat, and by the way, you might be wondering, what's a martial arts match? It's basically that both guys wore like cheese, like the Royce Gracie gi, the outfit, you know, the robe with the fucking belt and everything. And I think they were so babyface. I think that both, like Steamboat wear white and Morocco wore black, and they just beat the crap out of each other, and they did more martial arts, and somehow the match ended, and I believe Steamboat won. The next one we have Morocco versus Steamboat, another feud that's forgotten by assholes and idiots who don't know their history. And unfortunately, those two guys never had a pay-per-view match. That's like the beginnings of pay-per-view. If they were going to have a pay-per-view match, Morocco versus Steamboat, it would have been WrestleMania 2. But by that time, the feud had kind of just about run its course, and they had to move on. But of course, neither guy did anything better. Steamboat beat Hercules, which is actually an honorable mention, and Morocco went to the double DQ with the aforementioned Paul Orndorff, or double countout, and neither one of those matches were particularly good. So I guess it's just a thing where they should have just booked a Steamboat Morocco martial arts match for WrestleMania 2, but they didn't. 4 is the Royal Rumble 1988 against Ravishing Rick Rude. This was a great match. This was, I might have been the actual first ever, if I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. It could have been the first ever televised match of a Royal Rumble show ever. Ricky Steamboat versus Rick Rude, 2 main event caliber guys wrestling in the opener. Very small card in the fact that it didn't have a whole lot of matches, like 5 or 6 matches on this show. They had the Dino Bravo bench press. Of course, the whole Royal Rumble 88 was just a way to fuck with NWA and their Bunkhouse Stampede pay-per-view. But yes, I watched the Royal Rumble 88. Steamboat and Rude have a great match. I have written here Steamboat beat Rude. By my memory right now, I thought it was a 20-minute draw, so I'm not really sure off the top of my head if Steamboat won or if that was a 20-minute draw, but in any event, worth watching, discover it for yourself. Once again, that show was not on a pay-per-view. That was live on the USA Network for free. Next match, get this, 30-minute Iron Man match, I won't spoil it, Bash of the Beach 92 versus Ravishing Rick Rude. So it's 4 years later, and these two gentlemen have gone about their business. They've both left New York. They've both left Vince, and they've found themselves doing quite wonderfully over in WCW. Rude, I believe, was the U.S. champion going in, and they have this wonderful 30-minute Iron Man match. So I appreciate, yesterday I did my Paul Orndorff tribute, and I said I gave a couple of referrals to great Paul Orndorff matches, including the Super Brawl 93, Super Brawl 3 in 1993, Orndorff versus Cactus Jack, and Ian Patrick Gagnon, I believe his name is, a fellow Rhode Islander turned Floridian, actually took the time and effort to watch the match, so good for Ian. And now, perhaps Ian and yourselves will say, gee whiz, I really need to see a good Ricky Steamboat match. We're celebrating Ricky Steamboat for no particular reason. Like he's not dead, he's not sick. I'm just doing this because I want to do it. So Ricky Steamboat and Rick Rude have this wonderful 30-man Iron Man challenge match at Bash of the Beach 92. No spoilers. I'm not going to fly like that. Number 2 on the list, it might be shocking. You might have said, oh, gee whiz, Mike, how could this not be number 1? Before I get to that, another honorable mention. For whatever reason, I didn't mention. You're going to be shocked by this honorable mention. Well, guess what? I'm going to save the honorable mention for next, because I have an honorable mention that's such a great match. It could have been number 1, but it's not even on the list that I made over 10 years ago. I was working for Nature's Choice, for Christ's sake. The number 2 choice, WrestleMania 3, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Randy Macho Man Savage. Your Intercontinental title is on the line. I can tell you now why this match is not on my list as number 1. Why it's on the list as number 2. There's an asterisk to this match. Every time when I mention it, it fucks with people because then they have to admit that I'm right. The fact that George the Animal Steel was involved in the finish takes away, in my book, a little bit from this match. Not a lot, but enough. The reason why is because it's a very serious storyline. It's the, you tried to make me swallow my tongue angle. Oh! Gee whiz. It's the you tried to make me swallow my tongue angle from 1987 from a Saturday morning challenge match. And then they do this whole thing. Bruno Sammartino comes out of retirement to wrestle Savage. Everyone's angry at Savage for nearly killing Steamboat. And how do they reward us with the payoff at WrestleMania 3? It's because George Steele had been floating around George Steele actually lost to Randy Macho Man Savage 4 times on Saturday night's main event in total. That's a lot. I mean, they were really stretching that Steele Savage match. I guess it had legs because of Elizabeth, and George Steele had a crush on Elizabeth, but George Steele, for whatever reason, was positioned, and it was fine. It was a fun feud, but it was like he was positioned as the antithesis of Macho Man Savage. It was a great feud in a way. You had this aging veteran George Steele against Macho Man, who's in the prime of his life. The lovely Elizabeth. George Steele, they started breaking out the Mind doll. Like, George Steele had this fucking weird gorilla doll called Mind that the kids could buy. It was a lot of fun. But I feel like Vince being Vince or whoever, they felt the need to give George Steele a little bit of a shine, a little bit of a rub, a little bit of a WrestleMania moment. So they actually have him interfere in the match. I'll let you watch it. You decide for yourself. I'm sure you've most likely seen that match. It's a great, precise match. Steamboat talks about how Savage and him would rehearse the match because Savage wanted to have the best match ever. And they would go through all these moves, and they would have, like, Savage had it all written out. But for me, if it was Savage's booking decision or Savage's writing decision or whatever, to have George Steele involved, I feel that's an error. I feel it's a mistake. You might think differently. I'm just telling you how I feel. You can feel however you want. I just think it was an error. I just think it was a mistake. And I think it tampers with the match a little bit. Beyond that, the match was great. Steamboat, I believe, wearing those long white trunks. You had to say that Steamboat was one of the most rock-solid physiques in all of professional wrestling. Just a real captivating guy. Like, people compare him to Bruce Lee, but probably 30 or 40 pounds heavier than Bruce Lee. And that's how he got the Dragon name. But Steamboat was just a great wrestler and really talented and did his job well. And everything they asked of him, he exceeded at. I believe his real name is Richard Blood, which is kind of a cool name for a wrestler anyway, which I think the story goes that Tito Santana happened to be using the name Richard Blood coincidentally enough, and so that Steamboat needed a different name, and there was a wrestler from the past named Sam Steamboat, and they, whoever, Crockett Promotions or somebody, named him Ricky Steamboat after Sam Steamboat. Number 1, now here's the honorable mention. Okay, I'm going to name the two matches, and you can decide in your own mind, just a little fun game, which of these 2 matches I chose as number 1. So first we have, it's 2 of the trilogy matches, Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat, Chi-Town Rumble 89. I believe it was a Monday night pay-per-view, believe that or not, in Chicago. Steamboat challenging Flair, or Wrestle War 89. Flair and Steamboat. Steamboat now defending against Flair in a 1-hour time limit match with judges. I believe the judges, was it Terry Funk, Pat O'Connor, and Lou Thez? Do I have that right? Or did I botch that a little bit? But in any event, Chi-Town Rumble 89 or Wrestle War 89. One is number 1 on the list, and one didn't even make the list that I made at Nature's Choice. The number 1 choice, my brethren, believe it or not, is Chi-Town Rumble 89. And I put that at number 1. Once again, this list is over 10 years old. I think I put that as at number 1 because I felt like Steamboat excelled in that match. The crowd was into Steamboat. They had a variation on a theme of the Dusty finish, and actually our buddy there, Dave Meltzer, talks about that on the Lapsed Fan. If you can find that somewhere on the Lapsed Fan, I believe Meltzer talks about that. Maybe at the Starrcade 88 thing, Starrcade 88 Meltzer Lapsed Fan episode, somewhere. But basically, the Chi-Town Rumble 89, for me, it was Steamboat at his best. I probably put this over the Savage match for the following reasons. A, no George Steele interference. B, I was just more of an NWA fan at that point than I was a WWF fan. It just felt more real to me, you know? Sorry. I mean, George Steele walking around with his hairy chest. It's a good comedy act for children, but for men, Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat, Chi-Town, Rumble 89. And I think the reason why I put this as my favorite Steamboat match, once again, it's the performance of Steamboat. That's why number 7 was the Clash 6 match, which I've always mostly said that's my favorite wrestling match of all time. But I think in this scenario, Steamboat, maybe just because he won, it's simple as that. Somebody had to win, and Steamboat won this one. The Wrestle War 89 match is also a great match. And a lot of people like that. I think Triple H even puts that as his favorite match. And here's a dick in the ass. If you ever watch that Triple H, like the original 2000 DVD of Triple H, and he says, oh, my favorite match was Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair. They edit out the entire Funk scenario after the match. Like on the DVD, it's just a singular DVD. And for whatever the fuck reason, on the extras, they put Steamboat versus Flair from Wrestle War 89 as Triple H's favorite match. I guess they were just so excited to have this NWA WCW library that they just finagle fucked however they could put stuff in. They took out the whole Flair Funk thing after, which made no sense. Idiotic move from idiots in Titan Tower. But we'll forgive because we're nice guys, right? But Flair, Steamboat. What else do you have to fucking say? Chi-Town, Rumble 89. Once again, folks, this list is up for auction. I've had it for over 10 years, but I'm auctioning it. So just put your... Talk about fucking wrestling history. You can imagine a younger Mike Messier sitting in a goddamn Nature's Choice office, the middle of Rhode Island, trying to sell fucking vitamins over the phone to people that don't want them. And... I'm writing these fucking wrestling lists because that's how much I gave a flying shit about my job. So there you go, folks. Put your bid on the comments. If you have it, a lot of folks have been saying, hey, Mike, please, we need more of your wrestling memories. There are a lot of wrestling memories intertwined in these videos. I do have the whole pro wrestling memories, pro wrestling tributes list. I think what the call to arms was more me going to a wrestling show and being there live and sharing that experience. So I'm going to start doing some of that, more of that. ECW, WCW, yes, Saturday Night's Main Event. I attended one of those, one of the originals. So that's it. Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. Do your wrestling homework. And if by any chance Ricky the Dragon Steamboat gets to see this video and he knows that he has a pro wrestling historian that's appreciated his career, and I wasn't going to wait until something unfortunate happened. I mean, Steamboat might outlive me, for Christ's sake. I mean, the guy's in great shape. So I'm not going to, I'm just saying that we have to honor these wrestlers. Steamboats, the Junkyard Dogs, who's no longer with us, but Tito Santana. Maybe I'll do a Tito Santana list next. Great wrestler. Who else? I mean, Tully Blanchard. I've done an Arn Anderson list for great tag teams. But these are the people, these wrestlers, these like people giving Jim Ross a hard time last week because he made a mistake. You have to honor these pro wrestling legends. These are the fabrics of our lives. All right, subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. Thanks.